Welcome back, focused learners, to today's explainer. I'm so glad you're joining us because we're tackling a massive headache that's keeping team leaders and creators up at night. Literally everywhere you look right now, teams are rushing to adopt AI. They're expecting this overnight revolution in productivity, but for so many of them, that dream has quickly spiraled into total chaos. So today, we're going to unpack exactly why that's happening and, more importantly, how you can actually fix it. Let's just let this foundational premise sink in for a second. If AI made your workflow messier, the tool was not the problem. I know. It's so easy to blame the algorithm, right? To say the tech is just overwhelming or it pumps out way too much noise. But honestly, the technology itself isn't the root of your operational chaos. It's really just doing exactly what you asked it to do. All right, let's dive right into this. Section 1, the AI workflow paradox. So what is the workflow paradox? Basically, it's what happens when you take a high-speed generative tool and slap it onto a low-speed unstructured process. And what you get definitely isn't efficiency. You just get massively magnified bottlenecks. Think of it like buying a Formula One race car and then trying to drive it in bumper-to-bumper city traffic. When teams adopt AI, they're expecting this instant, seamless productivity. But if your foundational process isn't built to handle that kind of breakneck speed, you don't get a faster commute. You just create a massive traffic jam at the very first intersection. Which brings us to Section 2, the illusion of speed. Because, as you'll see, faster is definitely not always better. The very second you flip that AI switch on, ideas just explode in volume. Suddenly, you've got endless hooks, multiple angles, dozens of caption variations, perfectly brainstormed concepts, and multiplied drafts. Before this, a team might spend, an entire afternoon trying to nail down 3 solid angles for a campaign? Now, you click one button and boom, you have 50. The sheer volume of generation is absolutely breathtaking. And this table perfectly illustrates that illusion of speed. Look at this. We go from maybe 5 ideas a week up to 50, from 2 drafts a week to 20, and the actual speed of output, it collapses from days into literal seconds. On the surface, it looks like an absolute triumph of modern tech, right? You're getting so much more done in a fraction of the time. Or are you? Well, let's look at Section 3, when workflows break down. Because suddenly your Slack channels and emails are completely flooded. You start seeing messages like, hey, can we change this everywhere? When your drafts suddenly multiply from 2 a week to 20, and there's no clear direction behind them, total confusion sets in. Reviewers get completely overwhelmed, and they end up leaving these scattered, fragmented bits of feedback on documents they barely even have the time to read. And then, of course, comes the inevitable panic. Wait, who actually approves this? The machine just spit out 24 highly polished drafts in the blink of an eye, but nobody actually knows whose desk they belong on. There's this complete lack of clear ownership over this massive, sudden influx of new content. And then we hit the absolute most exhausting question of all. Wait, is this stuff even on brand? This happens all the time when you don't have a clear initial brief. You just let the AI run wild, and now all these totally off-brand AI generations are just piling up in the review queue. And fixing them requires massive human intervention just to make them usable. The irony of all that incredible speed is honestly a bit jarring. Let's trace this out. On Monday, your AI generated a brilliant draft in like 3 seconds. Amazing. But by Wednesday, it's stuck in waiting for review purgatory because no one actually knows who owns it. And by Friday, the task is completely overdue. The AI was lightning fast for sure, but the workflow itself still totally failed. What's really fascinating here is the total contrast between these two sides. We're essentially trying to marry a supercomputer to a clipboard. On one hand, AI output is fast, it's high volume, it's instant. But on the other hand, human management is slow reviewing, heavy editing, and completely stalled task boards. You see, when the process is unclear, AI generates way more output, yes, but it fundamentally also creates more things that need reviewing, editing, and managing by humans. It's actually creating work instead of eliminating it. So let's pull back the curtain in Section 4, exposing the real problem. Because the real problem was actually a broken process all along. If you really zoom in on those stalled task boards, you aren't going to find a broken AI. What you're going to find are missing task owners. You'll find completely unclear deadlines, undefined approval steps, and incredibly scattered feedback channels. The real issue was honestly never the content generation, it was always the process. And this brings us to the core reality of all of this. AI doesn't ruin workflows. AI only exaggerates existing problems in the process. I really want you to remember this takeaway. AI acts like a giant magnifying glass. It merely reflects and amplifies the flaws that were already sitting right there in your workflow. If your team's communication was bad before AI is going to make it catastrophically bad by just exponentially increasing the sheer volume of things to miscommunicate about. So let's move on and look at a solution in Section 5, fixing your underlying process. The actual fix here relies entirely on getting your sequence right. Look at this clear step-by-step flow. First, idea and brief are combined. We do not touch the AI until we have a crystal clear brief. Next, we assign an owner. Someone has to be accountable before the machine does a single second of work. Only then do we hit AI generation and draft. That's followed by a structured review and approve stage. And finally, schedule and publish. By fixing these foundational steps first, we perfectly streamline the entire workflow for AI integration. 0. That is the exact number of workflow problems AI will magically fix for you if you don't have a clearer step-by-step system in place first. Think about it. AI is an engine. It's not a mechanic. It is absolutely not going to fix a broken machine for you. It's just going to make those broken parts rattle a whole lot louder and a whole lot faster. Which really leaves us with a pretty provocative question to ask ourselves and our teams. If AI is just a mirror, what is it reflecting about your process? I want to challenge you to look at your own scattered workflows, those overdue tasks, and those endlessly frustrated review cycles. Look at them not as a failure of the new technology, but as a perfect, high-definition reflection of your underlying systems. Because at the end of the day, AI works best when the process is already clear. So before you go out and buy another tool, or before you generate another 50 drafts in 3 seconds, ask yourself, are you actually building a fast-track to innovation, or are you just speeding toward a much heavier workload? Thanks so much for joining me today, Focus Learners, and I will catch you in the next explainer.